Ever since my last product owner class, I've had this looming thought from the advanced product owner class. We were talking about assumption versus hypothesis and the importance of having assumptions. And I saw an article come in that was referring to something called an assumption prioritization canvas. And I thought that this was interesting because I thought anything that's going to help you identify and test the right assumptions is definitely a win in my book. I think that too many times we fail when we just run with assumptions because typically assumptions are all based on knowledge, based on the way somebody feels about something. So assumptions are never based on proven fact or theory or anything else. They're all based on emotions. And I think that this is where people get the most confused. Because the truth is, when we ask people, hey, which of these would have higher impact on you? Or which of these do you think would work best? We are asking them for answers, and sometimes they don't have all of the statistical theory to give you the answer that, to what you're asking for. So they're giving you their answer based on their emotions, based on how they feel. And it's okay. And I think that's the big takeaway here. It's totally okay for you to begin with an assumption. But I do think it becomes your responsibility to lay it out and say, how do we make better choices and how do we get this assumption to the point where it's more of a hypothesis that can be tested and good to go? And I think that if we can test our assumptions before implementation, it's going to help us be better. But we need to make sure that we identify and test the right assumptions. So that includes understanding traditional assumptions and mapping techniques and how it all works together. It assumes that you have some type of assumption prioritization canvas that you can lay things out to know what exactly you're trying to do. It talks about how to identify any hidden assumptions that may be there that maybe you just weren't aware of. And then you need to make sure that you understand, once you know all this, how do you go about applying it and what key takeaways are you looking for? So if you think about traditional assumptions and assumption mapping techniques, this isn't anything new. This comes from Lean UX. It's been around for a long time. And I want to say it was David Bland, who wrote Testing Business Ideas. I want to say that's the one. And in that book, they talk about the way to use different techniques to figure out how to test assumptions. And sometimes that means testing things prior to teams ever working on it during a sprint. Sometimes that means using a sprint goal to test your assumptions. Sometimes that means, doing it a sprint before, right? And having a team involved and getting it done. So you can't sit here and just say there's a one-size-fits-all model here. You have to learn how to map and how to figure out which things you should be working on first. And some of the things you might want to think about is desirability. Does the market want this idea? Feasibility. Can we deliver it at scale? And then viability. What is is the idea profitable enough? And what is the idea we're thinking? And how do we apply it, right? So desirability risk is primarily the responsibility of designers and not the product managers, right? Feasibility risk is the primary responsibility of engineers. And then, of course, viability risk is primary responsibility of a product owner or product manager. So if you think about that, it makes sense when you lay it all out. So the first step is to create that perfect business model canvas. And later you can translate that into a value proposition canvas, because that's the way you're going to figure out how to get something from a state of an idea into something that's actually executable. And I think that it starts with identifying a hypothesis, laying it all out, making sure we understand, making sure all the key players are there, checking carefully to make sure that everyone understands their roles and accountabilities and they know what they're going to be asked to do, and making sure that we start laying out the assumptions so we can assess the importance of how much evidence we need to have to prove the assumption to be true. Some things are going to be lightweight evidence, other things are going to be heavyweight evidence, right? So then you can just start performing an experiment, learning how to test the riskiest assumptions first, and learn from it and repeat if necessary. What you have to realize is testing assumptions is an iterative process. It's not something we're going to learn everything on day one, right? First time you run a test, you're not going to know it all. Then you can lay it all out, and a product manager can focus on value risk, and a product designer can manage and focus on usability risk. And then once you have that laid out, then you can start pitting them against each other and deciding which things go where in the backlog. This approach also focuses on working with new products and calls that good too. So you can have product innovation teams or product innovation managers work on different things. And that's kind of cool, right? So you want to make sure that you've got the right people involved and that you understand the right level of emotion in order to make this happen. But I think the bigger picture is to make sure that when you go into the canvas, that you understand what you're trying to calculate, right? Whether it's low risk or high risk, whether it's a highly perceived value or a low perceived value. And you need to be able to break that down into quadrants and figure out which pieces of information you need to process first. Just like anything else that you're prioritizing in a backlog, you need to prioritize this as well. And this can become part of your technical debt sprint. So a lot of people don't know when they're going to do this. When am I going to get around to doing this? My advice is you should do it as part of your refinement meeting. But even if you don't have time during your refinement meeting to do it, you should carve out time to make sure you're doing this so that you can have it as part of your executables for the upcoming sprints and upcoming things that are going to be happening, where you'll be asked to share, the knowledge that you learned about the assumption and whether or not it has graduated to a hypothesis. So I think in order to do this, whether you're trying to do initial product discovery or whatever you're trying to do, the team needs to always do the following. They need to start with a clear goal. They need to explore the problem space using customer interviews, data analytics, market research, etc. They need to define your knowledge about the specific problems that you're going to tackle. So whether that's opportunities or jobs to be done, or however you want to do it, that's important. Then, once you have those, you are going to make sure that you are looking at ideation. So you're going to define your knowledge about the specific problems you have with the opportunities or jobs to be done. Then you're going to go in and do ideation. How can you solve these problems and prioritize these ideas based on opportunity score or other factors, right? So you're going to figure out how to go through and say, hey, now that I've got these ideas, let's make sure they're valid ideas and let's get them scored and put them in a place so we know which ideas to process. Then we're going to identify assumptions that surround those ideas, which makes total sense, based on value, usability, viability, feasibility, all the abilities. Then finally, we'll test to make sure we'll test these assumptions to prove that it does have value and it's something that we should work on. So there you have it. I hope that was helpful to you. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We would love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.